You always felt like you don't quite belong here, like you're watching life through glass, fully present but somehow separate from it all. While others chase the next promotion, the bigger house, the perfect relationship, you find yourself asking different questions. What if this restless seeking isn't leading anywhere? What if you've been here before, many times, and something deep inside knows this journey is almost complete? What if there is nothing left to fix? What if the strange emptiness you feel isn't depression, but completion? The soul remembers what the mind forgets, and some souls carry the quiet knowing that this incarnation, this lifetime, might be their last dance with Earth. Before we continue, if you're ready to break free from the repeating patterns that hold you back, check out my free guide, 5 Inner Blocks That Keep You from Deep Spiritual Growth. The link is waiting for you in the top comment below. You feel like a stranger in human experience, not disconnected but observing from a gentle distance. You engage fully with life, form relationships, pursue goals, participate in the world around you. But something within you remains untouched by it all. You're like an actor who knows they're playing a role that doesn't quite fit. This isn't detachment born from pain or numbness, it's recognition. You see through the game while still playing it well. While others seem deeply invested in status, wealth, or power, you understand these things are temporary constructs, important within the story of life, but not the deeper truth. Edgar Cayce described this as cosmic homesickness, a subtle yearning for something beyond material existence, not escapism but remembering, like recalling a truth you've always known but temporarily forgot. You're simultaneously in the world yet not entirely of it. Natural detachment from materialism follows. You lose interest in accumulating things without any effort or force. The drive to possess, to display status, to compete for resources simply fades away. It's not that you judge those who still seek these things, you just don't need them anymore to feel complete. This shift happens quietly. Shopping becomes boring. Luxury feels empty. External validation loses its pull. You prefer simplicity over complexity, meaning over appearance, presence over performance. Your attention turns inward, toward what cannot be bought or sold. Profound déjà vu experiences become frequent and vivid. Unlike the brief familiarity most people feel occasionally, your episodes carry specific knowledge you couldn't possibly have in this lifetime alone. You know how conversations will unfold before they happen. You recognize places you've never visited. You possess skills you never formally learned. These aren't neurological glitches. They're glimpses of a larger existence your consciousness is preparing to embrace. The barriers between your various lifetimes are dissolving. You're touching the understanding that past, present, and future might be perspectives rather than fixed realities. Calm acceptance of mortality emerges naturally. The instinctive fear that drives most human behavior no longer controls you. Death becomes a doorway rather than an ending you have to dread. You carry subconscious memories of previous transitions, not as trauma, but as passages between states of being. This perspective changes your life. When fear of ending no longer drives your choices, you're free to experience each moment for its inherent value rather than its imagined permanence. You discuss death openly without the typical emotional distress. You feel an unusual comfort with the topic that puzzles others. You know that moment when you think about someone you haven't spoken to in months and your phone buzzes with their text, or when you desperately need an answer and you overhear exactly what you need from a stranger's conversation. These moments start happening more and more. Your life begins to feel choreographed. Meaningful patterns emerge that respond to your thoughts with startling precision. You need specific information and it appears. You feel lost and perfect guidance arrives unexpectedly. The timing becomes too perfect to dismiss. This isn't your imagination. These synchronicities signal that your consciousness connects with reality at a deeper level. You're not just watching the universe unfold, you're helping create it. Reality becomes less fixed and more alive, responding to who you are becoming. Something shifts inside you, a quiet knowing settles in that you've done what you came here to do. This isn't based on worldly success or visible accomplishments. It comes from full acceptance of your path, seeing meaning in every choice and consequence, even the painful ones. You stop fighting against time. You stop seeking validation. Life ceases to be a list of goals to accomplish and becomes an expression of what already exists within you. Plans become flexible. Attachments to outcomes dissolve. This gentle contentment with whatever comes next. Even your questions change. Before, you asked if you were on the right path or fulfilling your purpose. Now you simply feel grateful for everything you've experienced. The anxiety about the future fades. You're no longer chasing something to complete your life because it already feels complete. Something shifts. Those patterns that used to run your life just start letting go on their own. You find yourself naturally outgrowing compulsions, addictions, and limiting beliefs that previously defined your experience. Edgar Cayce called this karmic completion, the natural conclusion of learning patterns that have persisted across multiple lifetimes. Sometimes you work through in months or years what might otherwise require several incarnations. This doesn't mean perfect behavior, but a fundamentally different relationship with imperfection. You flow through challenges more easily now. You take what you need to learn without getting caught up in all the drama. You absorb lessons quickly. The stubborn resistance that characterized earlier stages of development simply isn't there anymore. Familiar triggers no longer produce the same responses. Relationships transform naturally without the power struggles of the past. Long-standing fears dissolve on their own. You're not avoiding difficulties, but integrating them at their roots. You address the cause rather than the symptom. Your empathy expands beyond all boundaries. You feel others' joy and pain as if they were your own. The suffering of a stranger becomes as immediate as your own heartache. The happiness of a friend fills you with genuine warmth. This isn't the typical compassion that keeps you feeling separate from others. This is something deeper. Helping others becomes as natural as breathing, not because you should, but because you can't help not doing it. Your heart opens spontaneously to everything around you: people, animals, plants, even the seemingly lifeless world. The usual lines between humans, animals, and even plants start to blur in your awareness. You begin to sense the same conscious presence flowing through everything. It's not projection or fantasy, it's direct recognition. You're recognizing that the same life force expresses itself through every form around you. Natural forgiveness without effort becomes your default. Resentment feels foreign and too heavy to carry. You no longer want to hold on to grudges because you understand that judgment only recycles pain. The ego's need for revenge or blame simply loses its grip. This isn't about condoning harmful behavior or becoming passive. You still set healthy boundaries and respond appropriately to situations. But you do so from clarity rather than emotional reactivity. You see people's actions as expressions of their pain and confusion rather than personal attacks. Expanded compassion for people emerges naturally. You understand that everyone is fighting internal battles, even those who act with cruelty or ignorance. This recognition doesn't make you naive or vulnerable. Instead, it makes you wise and discerning. You respond to others from a place of understanding rather than judgment. You see through surface behaviors to the wounded souls beneath. This perspective transforms how you interact with difficult people. You become naturally healing in your presence. Karmic completion across lifetimes accelerates. Old debts get resolved quickly. Patterns that have repeated for centuries finally reach their natural conclusion. You feel the weight of ancient grievances lifting from your shoulders. This process can be intense, but ultimately liberating. You might experience rapid shifts in relationships as karmic contracts complete themselves. People enter and exit your life with unusual frequency as unfinished business gets resolved. Recognition of interconnectedness becomes lived reality. The boundaries between self and other continue dissolving. You begin to understand that separation was always an illusion. What seemed like individual consciousness reveals itself as expression of one universal awareness. This doesn't mean losing your unique perspective or personality. Your individuality remains, but expands to include everything else. You're like a wave, recognizing it was always ocean. The wave doesn't disappear, but understands its true nature. You start seeing other people as aspects of yourself having different experiences. Their joy becomes your joy. Their pain becomes your pain. But this expanded awareness doesn't overwhelm you, because you also understand that all experiences are temporary expressions of eternal consciousness. These karmic patterns dissolving signal something profound. Your soul has learned what it came here to learn. The lessons that required multiple lifetimes of repetition have finally been integrated. You're ready for the next phase of existence. Your ego starts letting go on its own. The titles, achievements, and comparisons that once defined you start feeling small, almost irrelevant. Not because you devalue yourself, but because you understand that you don't need to prove anything to exist. The identification with social roles, with fixed ideas about yourself, with endless comparison to others, gently fades away. You realize you've always been much more than those temporary labels. The ego that served to protect you, to differentiate you, to help you survive and position yourself in the world, has fulfilled its role. Now it's time to transcend. And transcending the ego doesn't mean erasing yourself, it means expanding. You begin to see that the I is just a small drop in an infinite ocean of consciousness. The sense of separation starts dissolving. You no longer see yourself as me against the others. You feel part of the same whole that breathes in every being you encounter. You walk in nature and feel like the tree, the wind, the earth itself. You look into someone's eyes and recognize the same light shines there as in you. The deeper this connection becomes, the quieter the ego gets. Competition gives way to cooperation. You stop judging people and start trying to understand them. The need to be right, to be seen, to receive recognition fades away. It's not about killing the ego, but putting it in its rightful place. It becomes a tool, no longer the master. You use it when necessary to set healthy boundaries, to express your creative individuality. But there is no longer so much weight in decisions. The fear of loneliness dissolves because you understand you've never been alone. The diminishing of the ego and the connection with the whole are clear signs that your soul is almost ready to take its final step here. Something shifts in how you see the world around you. You start noticing that this solid world around you isn't as real as it seems. It's more like a movie projection than the actual screen. Your perceptions are creating your reality, and you begin to sense that what you're seeing and feeling is just the tiniest slice of what's actually here. You begin to see that this solid world around you is actually energy in constant motion, filtered through the narrow lens of human perception. Edgar Cayce called this veil thinning. The progressive recognition that material reality is more like projected light on a screen than the source of that light itself. This doesn't mean you're rejecting the physical world. You're just seeing it from a bigger perspective. Sometimes you have moments where everything clicks and you realize how much of what seems real is actually constructed by your senses. The world might look like moving energy instead of solid things. The line between you and everything else starts to blur. Your identity becomes transparent. Rather than experiencing yourself primarily as a separate entity with fixed attributes, you increasingly recognize identity itself as a useful but temporary construct, like a character in a play rather than your essential being. What you truly are extends far beyond the boundaries of name, form, history, and personality. Your sense of being a separate person starts to feel less solid. You're still you, but you begin to understand that you is much bigger than you thought. This isn't about losing yourself, but discovering what you truly are extends far beyond individual identity. Something changes in how you move through the world. You stop acting from need and start acting from overflow. When you help someone, it's not because you should or because it makes you look good. It's because you can't help but share what you have. Your actions come from a place of having more than enough rather than wanting more. People notice this shift in you, though they might not be able to name what's different. Before we wrap up, if you found this helpful and want to go deeper, remember that free download I mentioned, 5 inner blocks that keep you from deep spiritual growth. The link is waiting for you in the top comment below. If you recognize yourself in these signs, take a moment to breathe. This isn't about being special or more evolved than anyone else. It's about understanding where you are in your own journey. You might feel a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief because finally someone is talking about what you've been experiencing. Sadness because you realize how long you felt like you were carrying this knowing alone. Your experience is valid, whether or not it makes sense to the people around you, and you don't need to convince anyone or prove anything. This isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of living with complete authenticity. You're exactly where your soul chooses to be, ready for whatever comes next.